Hello, and welcome to the second part of our Rambles regarding the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, on our last entry, we touched on a lot of things regarding the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but we kind of concentrated a little bit on Marvel Studios. There were some mentions of other movies that were not properly made by Marvel Studios. To mention a few, I believe we mentioned Blade, X Men, the Punisher, Spider Man series, etc., etc. So what I would like to talk about today is the other studios. The let's give them names. The Fox Studios, the Columbia Studios, the Columbia Picture Studios. I even see here the New Line Cinema got to do a Marvel movie at some point. So that's what I want to concentrate. The not non Marvel Studios Marvel movies. So to start with, uh, I see here that Howard the Duck was indeed. Oh well, before we begin, I suggest you go back to the other episode if you haven't heard it, the previous one from this one, and so you can get a grasp of what we're going to be talking about today. Now, there was a mention of Howard the Duck, which is indeed the first Marvel Studio movies. It was done by Universal Studios. I have to disagree with Teacher George here because I don't think Howard the Duck was that good, but I guess it was kind of impactful. It kind of impacted since it was out in 1986 and was something no one saw before. It was something completely new. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to revisit that and see if it holds up today. Now, going down the line, there were a few other movies. There's The Punisher, Captain America, and Fantastic Four. As for the first Punisher, I don't remember seeing it, so I don't have much to say about that. Captain America was apparently very bad. I've seen outtakes from that movie, and it was only released in a limited theaters, and I think they pulled it back at some point. 21st Century Films was involved, which I guess I don't know if that means anything, but still, the Fantastic Four movie was never released. I've heard people hunt it down on VHS, and they keep it as some sort of I don't know, a joke more than anything else. So those are not ballad movies at all. So the first real ballad movie was Blade by New Line Cinema. Now, the one thing I do disagree with what was said on the previous podcast is that Blade may have been the first comic book movie, true, but I think its success had to do with the fact that it wasn't marketed as such. I mean, if you knew who Blade was, then perfect, you went to see it. But also, I never heard of anybody relating it to the comics. So I think it was just marketed as an action adventure. Vampires were in vogue at that point, so I think that was the commercial success of the movie. Had to do a lot more with it being a solid action flick, more than just being a comic book movie. So yeah, it did launch it, but it was kind of an underground launch. It wasn't like it was a soft launch. They didn't really uh, put all their money on saying, "Hey, we're going to do a comic book movie and we're going to do it right." I think the first movie that actually went out and said, "Look, comic book movies are going to do good. They're going to do well, and it's going to work." I believe the first movie that did that was X Men. Now, This is 20th Century Fox, which I have big issues with because I believe they basically don't grasp what comic books are, what the characters are about. I believe a lot of the decisions are being made by the higher ups in the company, and that kind of those suits don't really know what's going on. And sure, they give the movies to people like Brian Singer, which is uh, an excellent idea when it comes to doing a comic book movie. But if you tie up his hands, you end up with the Superman Returns. So Yeah, that's something I'm going to touch on later on after your reply, most likely. But I kept on going down the line, and the one thing that really stood out was 2003. I mean, 2003 for me was the death of the superhero movie in general. We get a movie like Daredevil come out, which is just a horrible rendition of the character that never should have existed at all. I saw it recently again, hoping that maybe there was something about it I didn't notice back when I was 23 years old. But no, it just completely and totally sucks. Not even the director's cut was even good enough for me. So yeah, 2003 has that. Has X2, which is decent movie. It's pretty good. I like it, but it's not as good as the first, at least not in my opinion. And then comes the Hulk. Not the Hulk with what's his name? The guy from Edward Norton. Not the Edward Norton Hulk. It's the Eric Bana, I believe his name is, which is just horrible. How they tried to do all the panels with all the different takes, and it just doesn't work. And the story, oh god, it was so bad. So that for me was the year with the comic book movie died, and they doubled up in 2005 with Electra and Fantastic Four. And all of this is 20th Century Fox, except for the Hulk. That was Universal. But 20th Century Fox did Electra, did Fantastic Four, and X Men Last Stand, all back to back, and they just kept on riding that wave. They just didn't really care about the fans. They didn't really understand what was going on. The decisions were made of you know it was just a bad time for comic book movies. That is until Iron Man came out. We already talked a little bit about that earlier on, but yeah, I just wanted to recap how they kind of jump started. They kind of started with Blade, and they wanted to keep on going with X Men, and it seemed like things were going well. The Spider Mans came out at some point, but 2003, man, that was it. That was it. It was downhill from there. Everything that came out was subpar at best. Ghost Rider is in there somewhere. Spider Man 3 is in there. Rise of Silver Surfer. It just all went downhill. So with the MCU handed over when the MCU started with Marvel Studios with Iron Man, that's when it actually picked up. So I give a lot of credit to Iron Man for being the one true great comic book movie that kind of launched everything else. Even things that from other studios that came out afterwards, like First Class, they kind of had to step it up in order to keep on competing. So yeah, that's my initial thoughts on all of this. I just wanted to make sure that it's understood that I want to talk about all the other movies that are not Marvel Studio movies and how they impact the whole universe, the whole system, I guess. So yeah, waiting for your reply.
Well, replying back to your the part two of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I mean, I don't know. I kind of almost feel like I mean, you kind of covered the grounds pretty well. You finished up a little bit of what I had touched upon on our previous episode on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I get that you focus really on like before Marvel Studios, but I mean, I'm sorry, in my view, it's just always sucked. It's just has always sucked. It's never been good. They throw out there a couple of movies that make people happy, and then after that they tend to forget. And I think, or not forget, they only focus on selling product and getting people to go to the movies. And I get it that that's what a studio wants. A studio wants to make back the money. Um, but I wouldn't even call them comic book movies. They're just superhero movies. And I think that's the part that's different. Which of these movies are actually comic book movies? truly based on the comic book, that the characters look like they do on the comic book, that the story sticks to how it is in the comic book. They don't have to change something just because some studio head says, regardless, 20th Century or whoever you want says, oh, that's not going to sell. Unfortunately, that's the problem. That's why most of these movies, I would not call them comic book hero movies, because they 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 mess with the mythos, and that's the biggest problem of it. They truly, truly screw with the mythos, and that's what what kind of just bothers me. Um, there, maybe, Iron Man 1 kept it real. I have to say, Iron Man 1 kept it real. So did Captain America a little bit. They did end up adding some stupid things in there, just for some god awful reason. Um, the Hulk back then kind of went back and forth a little bit. You would see glimpses of stuff you saw in comic books and stuff that you were like, no way, that doesn't even look like the Hulk, or that's not something Bruce Banner would do at all. And I think that's where it really bothers me. And I know X-Men is probably their best franchise, and but again, it's like glimpses of it. When Wolverine 1 came out, it didn't have a lot of Wolverine origins in it at all. Everybody's all hyped up about the last Wolverine that's coming out now with Hugh Jackman. I mean, excellent actor. He's done a great job being Wolverine, but the studios haven't done a great job of throwing out an actual Wolverine movie based on the comic books. Um, Sabretooth has never looked like Sabretooth except for that very, very first movie, but that was just a bad actor, so you kind of forgot that that guy existed. And then they brought on another Sabretooth, which a much better actor, but didn't look like Sabretooth. And that's what drives me crazy. Like, they go back and forth, back and forth. So everybody's like, oh, they're gonna make an Old Man Logan movie. I don't think it's impossible. They can't make an Old Man Logan movie. There's like no no backstory to all the other Wolverine like troops. Like, where is everybody else? Where are you gonna come up with it? Like, you can't just like throw X-23 at us out of nowhere. It's impossible. Like, that would be like the dumbest thing ever, because that's such a strong a story. And what about Dakin or Dakin? I honestly don't know. It's a comic book, so in my mind, I think Dakin. Some people might say Dakin, but his the mutant son. You can't throw that guy out to us either. That's my problem, and I know that I'm straying from your focus on 20th Century Fox or New Line Cinema or whichever of the movie studios. But the truth is, I don't think any comic book based movie has been good for a very long time in all of the worlds. I will tell you I will give you one guess, which is the only movie based off of a comic book that has been true to the comic book. I'll give you one guess, and I highly doubt you'll get it.
Well, that's a tricky question. If it's overall, and I know you're going to hate that I'm going to give you multiple answers, but if it's overall comic book movies, graphic novels included, I would say Watchmen is the best adaptation. I know there's a lot of differences in the end of the movie with the end of the book, and there's no Black Freighter, but still the way the characters were portrayed and the sequence of events, it felt like it was pulled from the graphic novel itself. So that would be my overall answer. Now, if it's just Marvel, I would have to say that is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but the best adaptation is Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four, the one before Silver Surfer. They touched on every single aspect of the origin story. The only problem is it was so damn campy. It was hard to watch. And I actually enjoyed it when it came out, but it was more because I enjoyed it more because I didn't have any comparison, nothing else to compare it to. So Yeah, I would think that's the best adaptation. Now, not the best adaptation, is the most true to the original story. Now, the best adaptation, without a doubt, is Iron Man. I believe even if they changed a few things, it's the best adaptation of a comic book movie in a movie. Every single aspect of the comic book kind of came into play. It was brought to life. So that would be my maybe my second answer, but you already mentioned it before, so I'm sure that's not what you're thinking about. So, straight to the point, Fantastic Four, the one before Silver Surfer. I don't remember what the subtitle was. Now, as for the way that the studios basically mess everything up is because they're trying to please a bigger audience than just the geek audience, which is the biggest mistakes. That's what makes me believe that those guys don't understand what's going on. They're just guys trying to do business, but they don't know the business they're in, and they don't want to listen to the guy that came from writing a comic book, or the guy that makes his living off the, I don't know, I guess, the internet criticizing comic book movies. I mean, those guys have their finger on the pulse. They know what's going on, but they don't want to listen to them because they're not valid businessmen. They don't know how to make money.